What's up, guys? This is Harrison Phillips, defensive tackle, number 97 for the Minnesota Vikings. Going on my third year here in Minnesota and seventh year in the league. Been going by way too fast, but it's fun.
I remember your first interview that you did, and it was chopping it up that we were talking, and we were having a conversation. You said a way for you to get to know your teammates is you always ask them, what's the hardest thing you've been through? Can you describe that, how that kind of came about and how that kind of ties into what Dream Big is? For
sure. I mean, I think football is an interesting collection of men from all different walks of life, and you have full demographics of different adversities people have gone through, different looks, different places you grew up, inner city, rural, suburban, urban, everything you can throw into a bucket, private schooled, public schooled. And, you know, on the successful teams that I've been a part of in the great teams, you're a close team and you have to find different connection points to your teammates. And as, you know, how does my defensive line, what's their bond like with a wide receiver, and how's the offensive line bond with a defensive back? And you just have different ways of life. And I felt like the common ground that everyone can relate to is everyone's had to go through shit. Everybody has had to overcome something in their life. And so I think the great equalizer, even though some people had a silver spoon growing up and some didn't, they've still had to overcome something. And I think that's a great icebreaker is, you know, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to go through in your life? What's the hardest thing you've had to go through to get you here? And you normally find similarities through people of how they coped with something or how they overcame something to get here. That sense of pride when you do accomplish it, the destination being not as important as the journey that got you there. And it sparked some really great conversations. And again, anytime a coach will be like, hey, so-and-so, go up in front of the team and talk. And if it's unscripted, somehow, some way, it always goes back to some type of adversity they've overcome because it's just something that you can always relate to as someone else. We all had to sacrifice a lot to get here, and so that's a great way you can relate to your teammates.
How would you answer that question?
Ooh. The further you remove yourself from a situation, the smaller the problem feels at the time. I think there's so many emotions, and when you're younger, so many things mean everything. I mean, think about, you know, I remember like getting called to a principal's office thinking that my world was over. Like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing in the world. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. So, you know, I look back to the injuries I've faced in my career. You know, I've had 4 knee surgeries now, another surgery last offseason. I'm sure, you know, there was even a conversation if I have one this offseason. It's just, there's always stuff that goes on and physically. And I think it's a tough thing to grasp is when you're physically in pain, you know, every day. And I'm blessed. There's a trillion people that would switch places with me to go play this season, but I'll cry sometime between now and when training camp starts, knowing that this is the best that I'm going to feel until after the Super Bowl. And it's funny. Like you giggle, like I giggle. It is kind of funny. But then, you know, when you have, let's say a nagging injury like an ankle or a toe, a foot, every single step you're going to take for the next 6 months is in pain. Bathroom, when you go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, when your family's in town for Christmas, trick-or-treating, you throw little kids in the mix, all those things. It's like every step I take for the next months, I'll have pain. And I think that that's something that's just hard to tackle because it's a never-ending cycle that, you know, I've got 6 months of this period in my life that I got to muster up for and try to get through.
You just talked about some of the physical demands of the job. When it comes to the mental, from year 1 to year 7, how has your mental process evolved through all of this?
Another great question. I mean, I could do the whole hour on just this question itself. You know, I think about, you know, the 7 years that I've been playing in the National Football League. There's been an evolution, and when I think about the mental journey and the adversities and the challenges and the rewards, that toil that's come through, it's changed year to year. You get into the NFL and it's first, you know, I can't buy a house because I'm going to get cut. You know, I'm not going to make the team this year. And you're just kind of wet behind the ears. You have no idea. And then it's initially, I have to prove to I got to prove to these people that I can play here. I got to prove to my coach. I got to prove to my trainer. I got to prove to the GM that drafted me and the head coach that drafted me that I'm doing okay. Prove to the fans that I can play. And there's a whole sense of pressure at that. You find yourself on social media all the time. You're reading every article about yourself. You're looking at, everything that can possibly be about yourself. Your families, every time your name's mentioned, showing you what it is. And that's great when the things are positive. And then, season will start and maybe you don't perform as well as you wanted to, or don't play as much as you wanted to. And when those comments turn negative, it can be very difficult, especially when you're trying to prove yourself to others, which is not a healthy way to live. But so many players early in their career, that's the world they live in, is I have to prove I finally made it. Somewhere for me, I then had injuries, and when things started to look like I was going to prove myself and being a real player in the league, I was put on IR after ACL tears. Started a little bit coming back from that, but was still injured. Had to have another surgery that off season, and so I was battling with those demons of like, will I ever play in this league again? Will I ever be the same person that I was? Why would they take an unestablished player off of surgery versus an older player who's done it for a long time? Always just worrying about making a roster. It wasn't until my 4th year in Buffalo that I finally stayed healthy and had a great season. And there was the pressure of being in a contract year, to where you can go have a good season and find yourself signing $1 million contract, $1 million to $2 million contract, or, a few balls bounce your way, or you're put out there by a coach who controls your situation, can dictate your play time. And because of that coach, you're now a $10 million a year person signing $30 million contracts. And so I think that was the struggle in my 4th year, was managing that mental capability. Then I signed here in free agency, and there was a little bit of weight lifted off my shoulders because of the respect that came with the contract I signed here and the immediate impact that the organization was going to allow me to have. And my mental battles came to more demons I could fight myself around, hey, I've established myself in the league. Like, I proved to a lot of people that I can play here. Now let's prove to myself how high my ceiling is. And it became more, it's now more of an internal battle I have with myself. Because a lot of my friends back home are like, man, I never thought you would make it 7 years. Or I never thought you'd get a second contract. We just thought you'd get there. And so I feel like I've already exceeded a lot of other people's expectations. So now I just have the ceiling that I set for myself and see what God's blessings can bring me.
What is the reward of proving something to someone else versus proving something to yourself?
I think that it's just an immaturity thing early on when you're proving to others. I remember when I got drafted, I was upset with where I was drafted. And I think every person, but the first person is upset with where they were drafted. I'm talking about the order. Unless you're the number 1 pick, I'm sure you're upset with what pick you are. And my whole mindset was I want to prove the one organization right, not the 31 organizations wrong. And so that was my mindset. And so I constantly felt like I had to prove Buffalo right and prove that GM right and that coach right, that they made the right choice. And I don't know what it was. When Minnesota, got me in free agency, I didn't have that sense of urge of like, I want to make sure Minnesota's right. It was like, I want to be the best version of myself to make the Minnesota Vikings a better football team. And I've realized as I've gotten older, and maybe that's because I've accomplished a lot along the way, that those small goals that you maybe keep to yourself and set, or far goals that you'll never accomplish, but the chase to get them, I think that conversation with yourself is a much healthier conversation and is a much more rewarding conversation than, I still don't know what my high school PE teacher, for example, I have no idea if he thinks I'm a badass football player or if I suck at football. Like, I don't know. I'm creating a world in my own head of, oh, these are what my friends back home think or family back home think. I don't actually see behind closed doors what they're saying about me. And I've realized through the years that that's much less important than what I say to myself in my prayers at night.
I mean, just thinking of all the things that you've accomplished, what are some things that you're most proud of?
I would say some of the things I'm most proud of are being a husband, hopeful to be a father, and sooner than later, I'd love to start a family if we can, if God blesses us with that. When I think about my athletic accomplishments, the Walter Payton Man of the Year's number 1, 2, and 3, I feel like on things that I've accomplished, that means a lot to me. And, I think the way my career is shaping up, I'm sure that I've made majority of people who will remember me 20 years from now are probably going to remember how I made their child feel when I was with them at one of my events and at rented out a Dave & Buster's or giving them their first Build-A-Bear or taking them on shopping sprees or my camps with Vikings play. I think I'll be remembered more by that than the game-winning sack I had versus Arizona or the Green Bay or whatever it is. So that's really rewarding.
I mean, I'm just thinking of like your playmakers, right? Like when you think about all that you've accomplished with those great group of men and women, like what stands out to you? Like, I guess the question is, that's what you think people will remember you by, which is probably 99% true, but how do you want to be remembered?
Well, football's been my whole life for a long time. So I would love to have my name or jersey retired or have a gold jacket or a Ring of Honor as a Minnesota Viking. I mean, those are definitely goals I have for myself. I'd like to make a Pro Bowl. I'd like to be an All-Pro. I've learned some of those things are out of my control. And like I said, I'm still trying to find my ceiling and hope that I have more in the tank of the type of player I'll become. But, a little bit more down to earth, what I want to be remembered as is, for my teammates, I want to be known as one of the hardest workers that they played with. I think when they think back to me, or if my name gets brought up, I want them to think like, he worked really hard. Like in those off seasons, he was there every day and he was grinding, he was pushing us. I think that's a good thing to hang your hat on. And then just a good person. I'm not best friends with every player on our team, but I bet if you asked a lot of them, like, who would you go to with a real problem? Or if you had an actual question about something that really mattered, I think my name would maybe come up. And I think that means a lot to me too. Just, being a good guy, that carries some weight. And my parents raised me that way. My faith is engraved in that same system and the morals and values that I have. I hope that would be recognized. A strong Christian, I hope, would be another thing that my teammates would remember me as.
That's awesome. You did bring up a good point about just working out and being one of the first people there, always outworking everyone. I know from a personal perspective, whenever I'm out at practice or after practice, I always see you hop on the bike afterwards. Like you're just getting that extra work in or you're on the pads. How has your fitness evolved since entering the league?
You had to get creative. I know I don't think I'm an old player, but my body has played thousands of more snaps. And so you have to take that into consideration. I know for the first 3 or 4 years when I was in the NFL, season would finish on a Sunday, and that Friday I was hitting my first 2-a-day. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 days I'd be on the elliptical and like, I can't do this anymore. I got to go. And I'd wrestle with my high school team, do the full wrestling practice with them. I'd go lift, I'd run. I was doing 2-a-days all off season long. And there was a time and place for that. You're 22 years old and you're still, didn't play a lot, don't have a lot of wear and tear. Then the injuries kind of changed some stuff. And, I learned a little bit about minimum effective dose training where what's the least I can do, but still make gains. Doing 300 reps on a bench press actually probably is not much better for you than if you did 50, how you break it down and how you can train smarter. These last couple off seasons here in Minnesota has been the most forward thinking. We have an incredible staff that really cares about that side of it, the performance side, and have brought me data-based research and scholarly journals that express this is the best thing for you. This is, instead of these schools of thought that are arbitrary, they're able to say, hey, no, here's the data that backs this up. You should do it this way. This is how you should taper. This is how your off-season lift should look. And I think that's been really great. I feel like I'm getting my old man strength now. I actually had a really good off-season. I PR'd in my speed. Bench press is up there. Kaiser squat PR'd today. I mean, I'm in a really good strength and speed and performance thing. I think that's because of the Minnesota Vikings.
Having that old man strength, I'm sure that goes back to your wrestling background and how that, portrays or, kind of translates to what you do for a living at the nose tackle position. For people that are wanting to play other sports or on the edge of playing other sports because they want to focus on one thing, like what would you tell them to kind of, push the nudge of be active and do more fitness and do more things outside of what you just want to do?
It's something I'm pretty passionate about and hard to speak on because I don't have a child that's in that age of competitive travel sports, but I am a major component to not individualizing for as long as you can. I have a gym, ETS, Minnesota company that I've now opened in Omaha, and it does frustrate me when I see an athlete come in and their only sport is this one thing that they do 350 days a year, and their parents are telling me, well, if they don't do the winter and the spring, the coach won't let them be on the team for the summer, and if they don't do the travel program in the fall, they won't let them play on the team. And I really hate that. I think that there's a lot of ill will and money grabs that's happening in youth sports. The best thing for athletes is to do as many sports as you can. I think I played 8 or 9 in my upbringing, and for those who want to play at the next level, oftentimes it's not that they have to be a baseball player in college or they need to play football in college. Most kids just be like, I want to be an athlete. I want to play a sport in college. And at 13, 12, you have no idea what your body's going to transform into. And I think you really handicap yourself saying, I'm going to be a baseball player. I'm going to play linebacker for the rest of my life. And you're 9 years old. I think that's a huge disservice to yourself. And I played 4 sports all the way through high school. I didn't even for sure choose football until after my junior year. I know there's a lot of multi-sport athletes who had similar upbringings, and it's unfair. Some of the Caitlin Clarks of the world could be stuck at softball somewhere because their 8th grade coach said, you got to play for me year round. And now we don't have another superstar next to Caitlin Clark.
I was just thinking about this the other day. When you look at just the defensive line position, like it's kind of a synopsis of life, right? You got an opponent, you got to get through it to get to your ultimate goal. Like, how do you kind of correlate, what you do for a living to what, life is as far as getting over things?
There are parallels to what I do for a living to life. I'm sure a lot of people can relate in their own jobs, and, not to glorify it and moviefy it as much as it is, but the intricacies of, a man lining up in front of another man, grown man, both fighting to put food on their table for their children, their families, both equally want it, both equally deserve it. You don't really get in life what you deserve sometimes. It is what it is. And then the whistle blows, whether you're ready or not, that ball's snapped, and baptism by fire. And it's violent, and it's quick, and it's gruesome, and sometimes it's not as hard as you thought it was. Sometimes it's way harder than you thought it was, and then it's over. Catch your breath, rebalance, and you're about to go do it again. And I think there's a lot of similarities to life where no one's projected their lives to be what they've done. I think I've heard from a lot of successful people that say, if I was able to go back and you were to show me the path of what I would have to do to get to who I am today, I don't think I would have done it, because of all the stuff that I, God didn't show me that at the time. But each battle you face is, same with life, same with football. Before I walked out on the field, you had to show me every one of those plays that's going to happen to me, and every awkward position, and every crack and bump and spit and blood and all. I might be like, let's skip this one. But then you go do it and you feel accomplished, and you're a much better person because of it.
What would you tell the younger dreamer?
Reach for the stars. I mean, you have to. If I ever go to a camp or in front of a high school and they're like, give me one quote, it's always, if you can reach for the stars and you only get the clouds, you're still higher than everyone else. And I'm a big proponent of making far, long off, lofty goals. And if you don't accomplish them, you're going to accomplish a lot along the way, and you'll still be pretty happy with what you've done. Like I said, my goals are to be first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know if my career is shaping up for that, but I am accomplishing a lot on the way to that goal. If I set a goal to just be an NFL starter, well, then when I accomplished that 4 years ago, I would have, kicked my legs up and rode off into the sunset. But you have to make these goals that are really hard to accomplish. And, I wasn't as developed as a kid. So as this, fat middle school white kid from Nebraska saying that I want to play defensive line in the NFL, actually I was going to be an edge rusher, I was going to be defensive end. Not everything happened the way I thought it was going to, but I accomplished a lot of great things along the way. So for you young kids, whatever you're thinking of or dreaming of, I think you got to dream bigger.
When you think of the words dream big, what comes to mind?
When I think of the words dream big, what comes to mind? I mean, selfishly, I go to some of my dreams, and some of the ones that I've already accomplished and some of the ones I have yet to accomplish. And when I think of dream big, I think of really unlimited possibilities. And I think that that's what we as a country or we as a community, us as the Twin Cities, as a Vikings player, NFL player, whatever community you're a part of, I think Endless Possibilities is a great blessing.
What is the nonprofit you will be donating 50% of the Dream Big hoodie profits to, and why is it important to you?
I'm super excited to partner with the Dream Big hoodies on this. As you know, some of you may know and maybe who don't. I run an organization called Harrison's Playmakers, and we work with almost 2,000 individuals across the country with developmental differences and special needs. And so a lot of our Playmaker pups have Down syndrome and autism. We have visually impaired, deaf community, nonverbal. I like to say my heart's unbiased. We're really welcoming of anyone who wants to be a Playmaker. And what started as kind of annual camps that would provide football-like drills to a population that would never get to accomplish that has morphed into something way more than I could ever do. We just listen to parent feedback. We listen to other people tackling these problems and having a whole inclusion revolution. We want, last year I did over 25 events across, 3 different cities in this country where we're meeting with, kids with special needs and providing awesome opportunities for them, whether it's doing these sports camps where they're on field with Vikings players or Bills players or, high school players back home, and renting out different movie theaters and different events. And the whole goal is to change the negative perception out there that these people with differences can't do things. A lot of people want to pity someone that they see with Down syndrome or with autism. And they forget to realize that these people are capable of a lot of great things. And just like you and I and you guys, we all have different abilities. My handwriting is atrocious. It's an ability that I have that's not very good. And I'm sure that you're a lot faster than I am, or you're stronger. We just have different things that we accelerate at and don't. And I think that's more, is we should celebrate the differences that we have with one another. And I don't like to say someone's disabled, because it's just a difference. And I think that one of the ways that we flip that negative perception is at each one of my events, although it's totally free and open for the Playmaker, we often ask them to bring a donation for a different nonprofit. And we work a lot with animal rescues or with foster care programs and homeless. And so for Thanksgiving this year, you see most NFL players putting on turkey drives and Thanksgiving meals for their kids that they work with. Well, that's not what I do. I take my Playmakers and we go shopping for turkeys and Thanksgiving goods and gift cards. And then we're out there with my Playmakers handing out meals to another nonprofit. And last year we partnered with the Veterans Hospital. So you have Playmakers with Down syndrome and autism handing turkeys and gift cards and meals to other people in the community, showing how independent they can be. And at my camp this summer, where we had over 500 people at CCO Stadium, we raised, I think it was like $3,500 of donations for Warrior Dog Rescue, an animal shelter that works with dogs. And that's my Playmakers showing up to have a fun day with free food and t-shirts and great stuff, but their price of admission was they need to bring some dog food, or they need to bring some dog treats or kennels or stuff. And we have trucks loads of stuff. And that's at every event that I do. Harrison's Playmakers are giving back and paying it forward.